Hello and welcome to the Town End podcast. It's episode 42. Wow, it felt like the old days. 1-0 win over Rovers. Does it get any better? Possibly not. But just to make the night even better, I have two other lads here to join me. Steph's actually made it on from the start. So, Steph, how does it feel to get a start?
Champion.
Too many from the bench. This is good to get a start, pal. And Donald's with us as well. Donald, how are you, pal?
That's how I am. Ready to go. Apologies if the voice doesn't last for the end of this because I was there and might have shouted a few times.
I think we might into exactly who you were shouting at because I was there a few targets.
There was
worse now than him having a refresher before this. He couldn't talk now.
Yeah, no, I was thinking like tonight's the one night that I won't mind saying any of them boys' names. I won't mind pointing out that old man Finn couldn't keep a ball in. Richie Hill was long past his best. You know, I could just do this all night.
Aidan Chelsea had a tough night tonight, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had a lot of crying towards the referee. Nothing seemed to go for him.
Yeah. Your heart would break for him, you know. Just like, imagine putting all that effort into making yourself look great and then playing absolutely fucking shite. Right, okay.
He's on it. He's on fire. Tonight.
It's always good when Donald's like this at the start, Steph. It's always really good too. Like, you know, this is only going to go pear-shaped.
Language warning.
Well, Donald, look, we'll start with you. How's the atmosphere? It seemed unbelievable on TV, from what we could see, because the poor director had to use the camera behind the goals for most of it. We had to look at the game in an unorthodox direction because the ones on the gantry were null and void for pretty much.
Yeah, it looked like because I think myself and Gally last week had talked about like possible protesty things happening before the game, whatever. It looked like the Shed had made an incredibly subtle protest of RTE by just continually blowing black smoke up in front of the camera so you couldn't see. Because obviously I couldn't tell how much you could see and couldn't see, but I would have been amazed if anybody could see anything. But it was one of the best nights in a long time. It's always a massive night when the stand are clapping and the stand are getting involved. That's always a sign that it's an absolutely huge night. And it was amazing. Just once the whistle went, every single person was making noise. Every single person was cheering the team on. And the boys responded. And they were absolutely brilliant. Like, to a man, they were absolutely brilliant. I was having a conversation on the way down the road then about trying to pick who the man of the match was. I think they give it Danny Boyle. Makes sense. It could have been.
No, he don't mind the blocks though. You know, even at the end, they were analysing some of, you know, how we were not giving Rovers any time, and there was 2 or 3 times like Richie Tell was trying to trap a ball and Boyle was just straight out nipping it off his toe and just gone, not having it tonight, pal.
Yeah. It was just an absolutely brilliant night. One that'll live long in the memory. I mean,
Steph,
the rest of the night might not, but the game will.
Steph, I presume you were a bit like me having to watch this one.
Yeah, look, there was a bit of sickness in our house today, but we were able to get a couple of kids off the bed early and sit down and watch it. So, yeah, some very impressive performances there, especially the lads at the back. And I thought the 2 fullbacks, well...
Yeah, Dummigan's coming in for a fair bit of praise here.
Yeah, Dummigan, look, as soon as your man gets taken off or switch wings, it's always, as a fullback, it's always a great sign. Like, and even he was threatening going forward, he was making overlaps, and I thought he was brilliant. I thought the same for
Leahy nearly scored it too, like, so.
Yeah, Leahy nearly scored twice, and he played the initial ball forward for Mickey Duffy. It was an incredible ball between Gannon and Hoare, and Duffy's pace got him there, and it was a great ball inside for Hoban, and he slips it through. Like I can't remember who's, maybe Grace's legs, and Sean Murray, like what we said a couple of weeks ago, he just seems to arrive in the right place at the right time. And
I think it was actually Hoare he nutmegged with the ball.
It was 100% Sean Hoare
just to make it even nicer.
Even better then. So I'd say he's done it in training a good lot over the last couple of years, so it was nice to do it in a match now as well. So it's a brilliant goal. It's like something you'd see off the training ground, really, like making that run from Duffy cutting in from the left, and it was just
like it's good control. Like Duffy controlled it between two players on the chest, like and then got it down, and like from his back to goal to controlling it on his chest to being on the front foot and passing it straight into Hoban. Like it's a hell of a move to be able to do all at once.
Yeah, it's a like sort of run sort of makes it easy for the fullback. Not easy, but like a run sort of makes a ball as well. And like when Duffy's on form like that, you know, he's the best in the league.
Yeah,
by a stretch, in my opinion, in his position, like the inside forward or winger or whatever you may call him. Like he's incredible, and like for him to take it out of the sky, control it, and be on the front foot straight away. And his vision, and he seemed to link up well with Hoban the last couple of weeks especially. So and then Hoban as the target man, and just a perfect ball through the legs, and Murray's arrived at the right time. He didn't even have to break stride, and he just slides it into the bottom corner. It was just a perfect goal.
I think that's 5 for him for the season now, am I right?
5, is it? Yeah. Look, he's been.
Which I think is the most. I think James Rogers had a tweet up. I think it's the same number he had scored when he was at Watford. So it's it just shows what he's like. You know, when he's on that form. But to have him on form, to have Hoban on form, you know, it makes a difference to have players on form. Because whereas at the start of the season we were looking for that little bit of, you know, a bit of work rate, a bit of consistency out of players, and we didn't know when that was going to happen. And you know, you can see all of a sudden whether it's Vinny getting them on the training ground and working on things, and you can see those patterns of play, like you just said there, Steph. It's you know, like everyone knew where everybody was. It was something maybe off the training ground.
Like the boys know each other inside out, and good players will find you sort of build up. That's what we sort of were talking about, bringing in so many from outside. And now that we're playing boys that know each other inside out, they know what runs they're going to make, they know if they like the ball inside. Like, as soon as Lee got that ball, he probably didn't even have to look. He would have known where Duffy was going to run into. Yeah. And I suppose the bit of confidence from the last couple of weeks, he was able to just fire the ball in, and he knew Duffy was going to get there. But just go back to Murray a little bit. Like, we all seen it in the European runs. Like, he was scoring goals for fun. He just needs the games, and touch wood, he stays injury free, because that's sort of blighted his career the whole time. But I remember going up to his first ever game was in the Malone Cup, and I don't even think he trained with Dundalk, and it was against Drogheda up in Oriel, and I was blown away by him. I thought, this fella's going to be a world beater here, and just the injuries have just held him back so much. But you can see the talent and the quality he has. Like he doesn't seem like he's any pace whatsoever, but he gets himself in the right place at the right time. He's clever on the ball. Like his late runs, it sort of reminds you of an ex-Man United player that's overrated massively. I don't want to talk about it. But that's the sort of, like, you know, he pops up in the right place at the right time, and you know, he gets valuable goals for us like he did tonight.
Yeah, and look, I mean, Donald, we've waxed lyrical about Murray probably for the past few games, similar to Hoban, but it's just nice to be able to, compared to where we were as a place nearly at the start of the season, it's just nice to have a run of, even for ourselves, lads, upbeat shows to, you know, that we're not going, oh God, you know, there's been another mistake, like a clean sheet tonight. That's you know, you actually witnessed a clean sheet, Donald.
Yeah. I know. I said, like, we were talking again with Gally at the end of last week's show, being like, you know, we'll win 1-0. And I was like, there's no way we're keeping the clean sheet. Like, we couldn't keep a clean sheet for love or money. And then you see that like tonight, and it's like, why can't they keep more clean sheets? Look how good they were. Like, they rode their luck in the first half. The shot blocked off the line. Cherry made a brilliant save. But they were like pretty much in control the whole way through the second half. Like, they weren't.
Steph fell.
They were falling down like Danny Mandrew looking for a yellow card. It's amazing to think that that's the same team that we were watching a few months ago. Like, the level, the difference in confidence and fitness and performance levels, everything's just miles better. I know, like, we have talked about Murray a lot and praised him and all, and I think he did an interview, and he's, I think, one of the only players I think that's done an interview praising the club and praising what the club have done for him, and that he wouldn't mind being around next season. So I was
Frank was looking for the whiskey tonight, I think. And you went for the cans.
I wouldn't be able to talk, which might actually end up being better if I just whiskeyed myself out of this. But no, like, he did an interview, and you read the interview, and I'm like, oh, I really want him to do well. Like, and maybe it is a case of he's saying the right things, you know, because he knows how to get the fans on side if you want to be cynical about it, and maybe he will be gone at the end of the season. But just to even say anything positive about his time at the club and how the club took a chance on him again, like Steph was saying, with all the injury record that he had was horrendous and has been pretty bad since he's been at the club. To see him on the run of form that he's on now, it's just fantastic. And you always want the best from him, especially lads like him that have suffered a lot with injuries, and his potential has probably been probably hasn't met his potential because of it. And to see him in the form that he's in now, like, he's been absolutely fantastic. And even he's making like 40, 50, 60-yard sprints deep into the second half to try.
Wasn't there something though? Didn't Vinny say that they were working a little on the training ground about him just timing that run into the box, and like, you can clearly see that when you look at the goal tonight. Like Steph said, you know, they nearly knew where everybody was. So when that long ball came up to Duffy, he's rolling into Hooben. Hooben couldn't roll his man, but he knew Murray was arriving in, and he could guide it in. Like, so if that is something that they've worked on the training ground over the past few weeks, you know, Murray's fairly reaping the benefits of that, isn't he?
Yeah, and like Steph was saying, the two boys seem to, Hooben and Duffy seem to be almost telepathic now. Like, it was just especially in the late stages of the second half, where a ball up to Hooben and Duffy's just gone, and all Hooben has to do is get it down and just get it in front of him, and then you'd have Murray coming up the other side, then breaking into space. Like, it does look like something they've done in the training ground over and over and over and over again. And it's been working because he's so, like, Murray's just so good at timing those things and just knows exactly when to be there, and he's a good finisher as well. Like, there's no.
Actually, I done him an injustice, by the way. It was his 14th goal for the club. Wow. So I really done a massive injustice there. So apologies.
He'll be furious at you.
You can listen to it on the way home, and he'll be yelling, and then he'll go, "Oh, it's okay. He's fixed it now." It's okay.
Right. He's going to change his tune. He's going to change his tune and say he wants out now because of that.
Yeah, please stay, Sean. Steph, you know, a consistent lineup from the Harps match. I know it was a point, but, you know, at times we played well in that, and you can see some sort of consistency even when we've got results in the past few games. Is that also kind of, you're starting to see the benefits of that, where people know how to play with each other? I mean, I just see something from John Flanagan there saying that we played them back in May, Cherry, Leahy, Sloggett and Murray all on the bench that night. Towards they're all first names on the sheet now.
You don't want to be like slagging off the players that have come in, like, sign with the club from outside the league, because we're all God's children at the end of the day. But look, it hasn't really worked out for them, and it's no coincidence that the players that are playing now have like they're the sort of the old guard really, and they're the players that know the league, know what it's about. Like Stanton's probably the only one in there, is he? And he's like,
Yeah.
he's Scottish. He's of the mold. He's not coming from too far away. He knows what sort of league it is. Like Scotland wouldn't be a million miles off what the Irish league is all about.
Yeah.
You know, so and you know the type of player he is. Like he's dogged. He'll get stuck in when needs to be. He'll make the foul around the halfway line where you were looking at some of the other players going. Some of them just didn't fancy it, stood back and wouldn't put in a challenge or whatever. But like we said, it's no coincidence that the players that the players that we've the players that
Dan three off your kilter, all right.
Yeah, sorry. That was bad from Chris. Chris just said that to you.
Yeah, he's thrown
When
me
Flano
off
puts
there.
in something like that, I have to put it up, lads.
Get Flano on. Get him on.
For a special blessing.
He didn't find his wallet in his pocket anyway. He hasn't seen that in a few years. Playing an old team. He didn't find his wallet.
Donal, before the goal, there was a fair shout for Rovers for a penalty. What did you see in the ground of that with Andy Boyle?
I think if the referee had called the game off because someone's shoelaces were untied, I wouldn't have been surprised. If he was just absolutely capable of anything tonight, I thought he was going to give a penalty. Whether or not it was a penalty, I don't know.
You easily could have given it very easily.
Yeah. And my immediate reaction was definitely, like he's definitely given this. And then he didn't. And I thought, like, there's just no telling what this man's going to do. And then,
but even for our goal leader, after that, I was kind of wondering what he was doing. I thought he's going to chalk this off. He seemed to be looking at the linesman for a split second. I thought if he's going to chalk this off for an offside, the ending was liable to happen with him tonight. Like
Murray sort of looked after he scored and was like, he's looking around to say, is he
going to chalk this off? I was like, oh no.
I didn't see that.
You were there.
So pay attention to the referee when other
you missed the replay.
Yeah.
Did it not show it on the big screen up in Oriel though?
No, and
the scoreboard's not even working in Oriel.
Because they didn't take a watch with me, so I'm like, I have no idea how long is left. Disaster.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sure, there's nothing. Yeah, I forgot this.
Scoreboard's gone.
I was wondering why he played 27 minutes injury time.
What did you think from the TV coverage and everything? Because we thought that the ref, that we got the best of the terrible decisions that the referee made the whole night. Like I know he made loads of bad decisions, but the penalty being one, there was a couple of other ones where I was like,
there was a couple of other kind of real dodgy yellow cards. He was kind of dishing them out at the end of the game in particular. If you just fell over, you got one. And then even if you didn't fall over, you still got one.
Yeah. Even the Mandrew one, the Mandrew one seemed like he got they were trying to stop him and he got a few bumps along the way, and then he tried to like win the free kick, obviously. And then he's just he sort of seemed to get touched. I don't know. I missed the replay, but he seemed like he got knocked, then took a step, and then tried to go down, but he booked him then for diving. But it was sort of an unusual one.
And then give Stanton one too.
Yeah, Stanton's was like just I don't know. Stanton,
I don't know what that was for.
I liked it.
12 fouls before that. Maybe it was an accumulation of that, but it seemed like the harshest one of the lot.
That Cleary one, I think he might have been walking too fast towards the referee, and that's what he got booked for. Because he didn't even just walked.
It was some just watching it, like there was some of them, like it'd be just, that it just scanned to a player and it just show a player, and next one you just see a yellow popping up and you're going, hang
Where
on
did
a
that
minute,
come
what did he get booked? And it was just like, just confirmation that Dummigan got booked, and he'd be like, what is going on here?
Yeah. I've no idea. Yeah, the Cleary one was a real strange one in particular.
Yeah.
Unless he thought the abuse was going to him, but I think he was having to go at Gannon too at that time. So
We all
maybe, yeah, that's it.
He did get a nice reception from the shed.
Gannon,
in fairness, Gannon, Hoare, all of them did. Old man Finn.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, who do you hate the most out of them all, then? Or just equal?
We can go for this.
I don't show
What's your top
favoritism.
four?
I
feel like I'm in high fidelity here, lads. What's going on?
I hate all of them exactly the same. No, it was just the Finn one was the one that, like, the boys leaving in at the end of the season. It was like, well, like, the place is a disaster, and it's not like they weren't breaking up like a golden team to go to Rovers. Like, Finn was in the team that was in the Europa League, and then one was the man of the match in the cup final that we had, and then about 10 minutes later it was gone. So that one was always one where I'm like, you fucking use this. But no, I have no feelings towards the other lads at all, because they're shite.
Well said.
Yeah. Breaking analysis there, I can tell you. Steph, just to go back to the game now that he's finished his rant there on our former players.
I provoked it, so I'll take half.
I was set up.
You get anything out of him tonight.
Yeah. Just before half time, Cherry pulls off an amazing save. Now, if you normally read the script for Dundalk Football Club, we go just coming up to half time or coming up to full time, we concede, balls in the back of net, we're deflated going in, and it's a different team talk. But it shows if you have something decent between the sticks, you pull off a big save like that, and it turned out to be a completely different game then.
Yeah, look, there was one or two that did a couple of chances, even like Turl thankfully like screwed a shot wide after that, after Green ran into Boyle's studs. But no, it was a fantastic save. Like, I thought if anything was going to come from Rovers, it was going to come through Watts. I thought he was very, very good, particularly in the first half when they were doing all right and carving out a few chances. And it was a fantastic save. Like, and surely that gives everyone a lift then, especially the timing of it, like you said, like going in at half time, and the defence obviously gained in confidence, knowing that, look, if something can get by us, well, then we've someone there that can stop it. Like, do you know what I mean? So it lifted everyone going into half time, and you could hear the crowd then. I think I heard Donald shouting a bit from the far side of the pitch. But it gave everyone a lift, and it was a well worked move from Rovers. And then again, just the time to do get in, then you rely on your goalkeeper, and he's pulled off a fantastic save.
Like Donald, it's one of them. He pulls off that great save. You think of the clearances off the lines, people throwing their bodies around, getting in front of players, getting blocks in. I suppose, like kind of like Steph just said, it gets infectious around the team. Then you see everyone else stepping up and doing something, and then you want to go the extra mile too.
Yeah, I like it. I think I've been saying this almost every week now about the crowd feeding off the energy from the players, and the players feeding off the energy from the crowd. So when someone, it's like the old cliche, like that if somebody smashes into a challenge and the crowd cheer, it gives everybody a lift. Like, so stuff like throwing yourself in front of a shot or making an absolutely fantastic save. I mean, I think the stand was like on their feet, celebrating or like applauding the save, because it felt like a massive moment, like and then it's just like, it's an infectious thing where you don't want to be the one to let the side down. Like, you don't want to be the one who doesn't make the last ditch challenge. Like, you don't want to be the one who gets beaten to a corner, which we seem like we were beaten to a few corners, but it's it's just like I just honestly can't get over how different it is. And like, we talked a lot about the crowd, and like, honestly, that was the best crowd in Oriel in a long time. And it definitely, everybody feeds off it. Players feed off it, and then the crowd feed off those performances. Like, it's just, you can't not get caught up in it. You can't not want to like put your body on the line because your mate's after doing it, or like, you know, the crowd are after going bananas because somebody's just a slight challenge or something. You know, it's just it's hard not to get stuck into that. You know.
It's like a polar opposite of a couple of weeks ago where the attitude was like, "What? Well, I'm not going to hassle this fella and close him down because if he gets by me, nobody else is going to back me up." Whereas it's like, I'm closing this man down because I know the fella that's beside me, behind me, in front of me is going to be doing the exact same thing. And like Donald said, they're just feeding off the energy from each other, and obviously the crowd giving them the lift as well. Just massive having the crowd back.
I mean, Donald, on that, you I suppose you were in the stand tonight, so you would have seen a lot of the banners tonight. And you know, they're showing their support, you know, for the team, but not the regime, as they had in their banners tonight. As I know you might have misread it one situation, but you know, when you think of how much Vinny mentioned in his post-match interview tonight, that, you know, it's 4 victories in a row here in Oriel Park now, with fans back in too. So clearly that has a massive effect, and I don't know how much that has an effect on players feeding off the energy from, say, the Shed tonight and the Shed over the past few weeks, and then the whole of Oriel Park. But also, I think we were missing that little fear factor when teams were coming to play us in Oriel Park, when nobody was there. It was like a training match, let's be fair, when there's no crowd there. There wasn't the intimidation, like you said. We were talking earlier about, you know, former players tonight getting some abuse. We had Figo-esque pigs' heads on the pitch at one stage too. So, like, you know, you don't get that when it's a completely empty stadium. You don't get that atmosphere. You're an opposition winger close to the Shed, and you can hear the abuse coming directly at you. You know, and the last thing you're thinking is, if I lose my ball in front of me here, these are going to be all over me, laughing at me. Or if I do anything wrong here, they're on top of me straight away. You know, so you either play up to it or you retreat back into yourself. But it clearly has an effect when you look at the results of over the past while.
Yeah, like, Oriel used to be the hardest place to go in the league, like partly because of the pitch, but partly because the Shed had been making so much noise, and that we had a fantastic team. Like, how long did we go unbeaten at home? Like, we massive stretches where we wouldn't lose at home. And like, I think Vinny had an incredible home record when he was in charge the first time, and then into the second time as well. Like, it should be the hardest place to go in the league, because no one should enjoy going and like using the away changing rooms and their away fans out in the sticks. Like, nobody should enjoy it. It shouldn't be easy for anybody. And it's almost been magnified now, obviously, because we had nobody in, but it's just like, it's incredible the last few weeks the difference that it's made. And I've never really, I think when we had massive nights with, like, when Kenny was in charge and we were winning the league and stuff, it was a different feeling, because you were expecting to win. And in the really tough games, like the Cork games and the Rovers games, they'd be the really, really tough games. They'd be the ones where you'd be like on the edge of your seat. But it's every single game now. Like, every game is every game is massive. Don't point it out, Flano, please. Every game is massive. And the crowd are just making every game massive, and are making massive amounts of noise. why is he having a go at everybody tonight? I don't understand this.
He's keep over Oriel.
Exactly. Steph, like, do you would you agree? There's also that fear factor for opposition now coming to Oriel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could sort of sense a couple of the Rovers players tense on the ball, particularly the shed side, and you could hear like the shouts and whatever else. Like, but obviously it affects you as you're playing a game. You try and drown out the noise, but when there was stuff coming onto the pitch, and I think Hoban was throwing off a few coins in the first half, even like. So yeah, it's a massive effect. Chris is doing a good job.
Yeah, just put in your own. Yeah, put in.
Frank thinks you need to go back on the whiskey, mind you. You think that's what stabilizes. That's what stabilizes you out.
Balance it up, get the whiskey.
I promise next time.
Lads, we're just going to bring in a guest tonight. So joining us is local journalist James Rogers, who obviously was there at the game tonight. James, how are you?
Hi lads, how's things?
Not too bad. You were saying that Vinny was in high demand tonight, was he?
Yeah, look, there's always a few journalists around him and probably, like myself, ask too many questions at times and drags it out. But yeah, look, you'll reflect on those nights all the time. I really enjoyed it tonight. I haven't heard the first half hour of the show, but I'm sure, like myself,
we're actually upbeat, James.
Yeah, that's it's a welcome change. To be fair, there's been too many hard nights for you guys this year, I think. So, and for us all in general. So it's kind of nice to be able to look back on a memorable night, and on and off the pitch. Really, I think.
Mm. We were just commenting, James, there. Just we were, when you think about the banners that was there tonight and the atmosphere tonight, there's a real fear factor all of a sudden around Oriel Park that has been missing really in the last year and a half, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was walking down the steps after the game with John Murphy, from Dundalk FM, and I was saying, like, how are we where we are? I mean, for a side who can produce performances like that, and we've seen it at times around Europe as well. Like it's criminal, I think, that we're only sixth effectively. But look, we can't dwell too much in the past. But I think that since the fans have got back in, I think they've made a huge difference. I think the players are showing a bit of fight and heart and that. It's like anything; it's never perfect. There's always improvements to be made, but I think if we were playing like that all year with that crowd, I think we'd be in a lot better place than we are.
What did you think of the performance tonight? We were only just saying that it seemed to be infectious in defence, that everyone was really putting their neck on the line, the blocks on the line. We were just talking about Cherry's super save just before half time as well, which can really set up a grandstand second half. But if we even take the goal itself, we're trying to figure out if it was one that's worked off a training ground, because the three players linking up seemed to know exactly where everybody was, and the pass off, the layoff, Duffy sucking in two players creates space for Murray the far side.
Yeah, it was a great goal, and I marvel that Will Patching actually was going the wrong way with, I think, 2 or 3 Rovers players behind him in the build up, and it was his pass with the outside of his foot that played it to Leahy, who kind of started the move. So even going that far back in it, I thought it was a brilliant goal. And I think what we have now is if we've players hitting form. Like if you look at, okay, he didn't score tonight, but Patrick Hubin, his goals in recent weeks, and again an assist tonight. If you look at Murray, that's 6 and 9. Even the defenders, like I was chatting to Dara Leahy coming out, and I think he could have had a hat trick tonight. He hasn't actually scored for the club yet, but it was just one of those nights where we're probably unlucky not to get a goal at one point. But like even his progress in the last few weeks has been, immense. And you dot it around the team. I see someone else mentioned Sam Stanton there.
Yeah.
It's and little things like even Greg Sloggett. I seen it early on a corner that he kind of got bullied a bit by it, and the next one he won, and then won the second ball as well. So there's little things that, you know, almost go unnoticed. And for me, one of the biggest improvements, I thought we were getting caught a bit at our back post in the build up to half time from balls into the box. And we massively shored that up. I don't know if it was a conscious thing or not that was discussed, but I mean, they were really battering us coming up to half time and basically didn't have a chance then in the second half. And even that, like, you know, the lack of clean sheets has been a frustration. I mean, too often this season we've had to score 2 or 3 to try and win a game. We haven't been able to do that. If you can get back to keeping clean sheets, you just give yourself obviously a better chance. It's hardly rocket science, but I mean, we just haven't been doing it. I mean, that's only 5 all season, you know, for a team who were keeping 20 odd, you know, it's too many goals to be conceding. But I was delighted for Peter Cherry in general. I thought you mentioned his save there, but he's just made such a big difference, I think, since he's come back in. Just the overall confidence he gives the back four. And, you know, at times I think we were playing too deep this season and it brought everyone back, you know, even from Hoban up top or whatever. But you know, we're more advanced now, and it's definitely it's paying dividends.
What would you put much of it down to a more consistent lineup all of a sudden, James? Like when you think about the players that we've got back from injury and some long-term injuries, I know we still have, but you would say like that's a consistent team with the 2-2 draw. And if you look at, say, our last few performances, bar 1 or 2 players, it's been pretty consistent of late. And that hasn't been the way all season.
Yeah, I think it's helped in some regard. I mean, we were speaking to Hoban there a few weeks ago, and he was of the opinion himself that, you know, and I'm not saying he said this, but there's been criticism at times over the perceived level of fitness, and we were definitely waning in games for whatever reason. That now seems to be gone a little bit, but he put it down to the amount of games they've played. It's basically they've got up to speed. Now, you know, you can maybe you go back to our lack of a pre-season and stuff like that for reasons for that. I don't know enough about sports science to comment on whether the programs are good enough or not. That's for someone, you know, better than me to judge. But certainly just being able to finish games strongly, like even start the second half without creating anything, Rovers were on top. And I thought kind of after the hour mark, if anyone was going to get a goal, it was us, you know, so we probably finished it stronger than them. And that's great to see, because look, we'll need that going forward, because, you know, you're looking at the league table there, and I even asked Vinny tonight about it. Like, do you fully give up, as much as like the cup is obviously the main route to Europe? Do you give up via the league? You know, all of a sudden you're back to 8 points behind Sligo. I know you have a game and more played, but you still have a lot
there, and
you know, like. Exactly, you know. So, and I mean, you're playing Bows next week, who again, look, I know they've games in hand, but if you beat Bows, you're level on points with them. So, it's it is a big ask. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you keep up this bit of form we have, and you look at our fixtures, because I think our furthest trip for the rest of the season is Inchicore. Twice, you know, one in the cup, one in the league. There's no big travel now. It's by and large 1 game a week, apart from that Pat sort of semi-final league game. And, you know, if they can do this, and, you know, you bear in mind, even speaking to Vinny afterwards, he said McMillan and Kelly were pretty close this evening. He does expect them to have them on the bench next week. If you can add maybe a McElhenney to that, there's still hope Brian Gartland will see football this season. All of a sudden, you have the options on the bench as well, because I think that's what I sort of feared tonight when I looked at that Rovers bench with the, you know, even the players that didn't bring on, Sean Kavanagh, Joey O'Brien, the likes of them. And with all due respect to our subs, there's a lot of youth there who, look, maybe their best days are ahead of them, but, you know, it's a lot to be asking of them right now, throwing them into a game like that, you know, but we'll see what happens.
I suppose I get to, future developments in Oriel Park in a second, James, because I know of late it's probably the question that everyone stops and asks you about. But just when you mentioned Vinny there, in his post-match interview on TV, he was full of praise for the fans, the atmosphere of what they've created in it. He hasn't shirked any sort of criticism that the team has received, but he equally thinks that they now deserve praise going forward, I presume it was kind of a similar what he had said to you then after, was it?
Yeah, we did ask him about the fans. I think the fans have been just amazing, to be fair, because it would have been easy for the supporters to kind of turn their back on the team. I think one of the banners tonight, I think summed it up. So I think it was support the team, not the regime. And they really have stuck with the team, and they've definitely helped them. Even go back to the Finn Harps game and the cup replay. I think going 1-0 down that night with everything going on very early on. You were literally down to the bare bones. They could have turned on the team that night, and I think other clubs would have, but they've been just sensational. Like even the atmosphere tonight, and it wasn't a full attendance by any means. I know the sold out signs were up, but you definitely could have fit more in Oriel Park. But it was just a joy to be there. Like it was a proper occasion, and the players have responded, to be fair. And you just wonder, had you had them earlier, again, I think we'd be further up the table. I mean, I was even leaving Oriel tonight reflecting on, the 7 points we've dropped against Longford. I think we'd be a point behind Sligo now, if we were, in that position, and I know ifs and woulds and shouldas and all that, but definitely the fans have been brilliant because, as I said, there's been so much, low points this season, and look, you guys know more than anything because you're coming on to this, at times after a new low, and you're trying to be a bit upbeat. You're trying to even you don't. You've basically become Whiskey Hanks. I think you were Chris in 1 week, so it's, Chris, I think you're the only man with hair still doing a podcast, so it hasn't been good. But to be fair, I have to say the fans have been, despite everything going on in the background, and look, there's still big question marks over the future, etc. But I mean, you have to say credit where credit's due.
One thing Vinny signed off with on TV on his interview was, although with all the praise that the team will get tonight, I'm sure your panel will discuss the contract situation. And sure enough, when I got thrown back to the panel, that's the first thing they did say was, these are great, but how many of these players are going to be here next year? I presume we're no further. We don't know anything. You haven't heard anything extra.
No, I mean, there's nothing.
It's confident words from Sean Murray pre-match in his interview.
Yeah, but another Sean told me around this time last year he also wanted to stay, and he was playing for the opposition tonight. So, look, it's great players want to stay, and you take. I'm just going to use Patrick Hoban as an example because in recent weeks, I think he's shown, even with his assist tonight, he's still, for me, the best in the league. I know Georgie Kelly has, is top goal scorer at the moment, but if you look back to our game against Bows, I thought the way Hoban bullied the Bows defence that night, I think that's why he's there. And I mean, if Stephen Bradley needs a bit of an addition of some of what they're missing, I mean, it was there tonight, not just with Hoban, by the way, but, someone like him, he's now, I think, 19, 20 goals away from the all-time record, Joey Donnelly's record of goals for the club. And, that in itself, given he's kind of settled locally as well, should be reason for him to stay, for example. But, if there's not a contract on the table, I mean, to go back to Michael Duffy, Michael Duffy probably wouldn't have stayed anyway. I think, there's an obvious desire to go home. There's an obvious desire to play under Rory Higgins and all that. But at least give him an alternative that, he can take home to his wife, partner, whatever, say, well, this is what they're offering me. And, ultimately money talks. I mean, he left Derry originally for two reasons, I presume, financial and success related. And we need to show both him and others that they can still achieve that here at Dundalk. They can still make a good. Okay, I know League of Ireland players, they're not millionaires by any means, but they can still make a good living here, and also compete, be it in Europe, be it in the league, be it in the cups. We need to show that. And unfortunately, you just fear every week that there's going to be another one of these coming with players will get nervous and partners will get nervous. Like you guys, yourself, it's it's the woman or whatever, like nagging you about like what's happening, and like they're probably, a lot of these guys are still in that boat as well. Like a lot of them have kids now; they've sort of grown up with the club, and who's paying the bill on January 1st? I've no doubt that the better players will all find employment, but like any of us, I mean, whether you're on €500 a week or €5,000 a week, it's very hard to go down levels when you're used to a certain lifestyle based on your income, and we all live to our income to a certain extent, so that's a factor too, because I mean, I'm hearing reports this week that the budget might be slashed to maybe the 4th highest in the league, which would say certain players will probably have to take pay cuts, and then do you lose some, because like, with all due respect, you don't have a plethora of players around the northeast, or certainly around Dundalk, that are available of a certain quality, and then that throws up the argument, if I'm a Dublin-based player, am I better at a Bowes or a Pats or someone on €200 less and not spending? I mean, I passed a filling station today. I think that the petrol was $1.62 or something. So you cut out that commute, which saves you money probably in the long term, and time, which we all have to put a value on. So look, I think this has been a disaster from a business perspective from Peak Six. Some people have felt that, and at times, unfortunately, it has been Vinny getting the grilling over it. But you'll never convince me that a manager, certainly someone like Vinny Perth, will ever want to lose a McElhenney or a Duffy. Yeah. So it's not up to him to do this. Unfortunately, he's probably the only one publicly facing up every week because of his position. But he doesn't even know if he's going to be here. Which, like, I mean, Stefan, you played the game. Would you play for a manager? If you didn't know he was going to be the manager, would you commit your future to that? Maybe some players will, but I think the pick of the bunch will want to know who the boss is, because if you look at even Styles there tonight, like, with all due respect to Stephen Bradley, he doesn't really play wide players. I think, did a complete lack of wit this evening. I really like Ronan Finn, I always have, but he's ultimately a midfielder who does a job at wing back. But Barry Cotter the same. Like I think they don't play that way. So if you're, I know he's obviously committed to Derry now, but I remember like Rovers fans saying we should go after Michael Duffy, and in theory it makes sense, but where are you going to play him? Are you going to all of a sudden change your formation to fit him into it or whatever? Maybe he's worth doing for that, but these are all things that people need to weigh up, because I mean, I remember when Vinny appointed Alan Reynolds as his number 2 back when Rory Higgins left. I thought it was an interesting appointment, because Alan Reynolds had kind of made his name playing a diamond formation without wide players, whereas we were probably the main team in the country, when you think of wingers. And for me, that wasn't, and no disrespect to Rennie, he's a good coach, but that wasn't a perfect fit, because unless we were trying to mix it up or something. But they're just little things that maybe the average fan won't think about, but I think if you're a player in a certain position, you probably will.
Steph, I'm just bring you in on that point that James just brought up. I mean, just from a player's point of view, like, at this stage, we can see from a lot of the players obviously signing pre-contracts already that their minds are elsewhere. Like James said, thinking about next year, where am I going? Like you've been at this scenario that when the team got promoted that time, you often talk about it, that you read in the paper to find out that you weren't being retained by the club. So it's got to be like a real roller coaster of emotions for players.
Yeah, like back then it was first division, so there was no such thing as a 2-year contract, 3-year contract. So you were sort of coming to the last 3 months of the season, like the manager was sort of letting you know, like, look, I'm going to be keeping you for next year. But with everything up in the air, with us going for the league, and it was sort of John Gill's, like, yeah, it was his last chance. And even though he got promoted, then he still didn't get the chance to lead us in the Premier Division. Like, but that's the, like, sort of, like, players are sort of looking around. Even you were talking to players, and they were sort of saying talking to other clubs, using them as sort of leverage. They wanted to stay at Dundalk, but they'd be going back to the manager saying, look, such and such has been in contact, they're going to offer me this, and we're trying to get more money. So it's definitely a financial thing, but like the level of players we have, like Michael Duffy's going to Derry because he really believes that they'll be challenging next season. And look, the players they've signed, the quality that they've signed, I have no doubt that they will be up there, or they definitely should be, the players they're going to bring in. But they're all going to have ambition. Like Sean Murray's talking about, like he wants to stay at Dundalk apparently. But if you want to be challenging, winning leagues and stuff like that, that's what you like. You want to be signing with the best clubs in Ireland, really.
Yeah, and look, and I suppose if someone's offering you better terms or whatever, in any job, your mind will be turned, and you can't knock anybody for wanting security, like you said, James, for their families. We think of the two lads who signed on, we know they've got young families as well. You've got to think about schooling and everything else like that for them too, and if they want to go back closer to home, then you can't really stop them. But
I think as well,
with reduced wages, could you have done a 3-year contract?
But I think if you strip all that away, like, yeah, money matters and yeah, security matters and all the rest. But if you strip all that away, I think players will, if you ask Sean Gannon, does he want to play a right back or part of a 3-man centre half, trio that he was tonight, or does he want to play a wing back? I think he'd pick right back every time. Yeah. And we could have offered him that in terms of, as I say, strip away the length of contract, the money and all that. And, sometimes I don't like talking about that, but ultimately someone like that will want to play somewhere they enjoy their football. And, that does become a factor too. Again, tonight, we play very good football when we're in full flow. But, the environment has to be right. How we rate these players has to be right. It's hard to see, like with every Duffy and McElhenney you lose. I think it gets that bit harder to climb back towards the top, or even whatever that is, be a challenge for a title, be it Europe, whatever. There's not that many out there that do it consistently. And, we still have, despite everything this year, we still have some of the best in the business. You look at even the defensive performance tonight. I know they've leaked too many goals. They know that. But, on their day, they're still as good as anything in the league, a lot of them. And for these lads to be, so I just mentioned Leahy. I mean, his improvement in the last sort of even 6 matches has been enormous. Like, he was getting up the line tonight. He was... I've sometimes, and I know they're judged at a high level, but, comparing them to Massey and Gannon, who we were spoiled with for years, I think the biggest issue for me with them is that they don't offer the attacking threat. And same with Djurkowskis. If you look at the amount of time Sean Gannon got to an end line, Dane Massey, they popped up with goals, they popped up with assists. I don't think we're getting enough of that from our fullbacks. But there was a sense of that tonight. If you look at the run Dummigan went on, early on and almost played Houben in, and Leahy, as I say, could have had a hat-trick at, his particularly his shot early on where he overlapped Duffy and stuff like that. I mean, that's a sign of improvement, but again, we're just putting these guys in the shop window at the moment, because, if I'm Stephen Bradley tonight, how I'm not looking at a few of those players in that Dundalk team and saying, yeah, that's probably, we could do with him. It's just baffling, but unfortunately we're blue in the face talking about it, as supporters, as fans, podcasters, whatever. It's, there doesn't seem to be anyone listening. And I still fear that they think they know better. Filippo came out with a line at the start of the year, well, like, you can replace players. I mean, you can, but there's quality levels. We still have a lot of quality there, and it's just important to hold on to it, I feel. But whether they do or not remains to be seen.
Yeah. James, just before you go, do we one or two questions in, if that's all right? Just with regards to contract situations, just Frank Harlan here asking, is that the role for Jim Magilton? Is that not what he should be doing?
In theory, yes. Like I would definitely say it's part of his role. If you look at if it was, I know it didn't appear in a traditional newspaper advert or whatever, but I imagine that is part of it. But I mean, in his defense as well, I think it's been completely taken away from him. So I'm not completely passing the blame over from him, but I mean, if your boss doesn't let you do what should be, in my opinion, a function of your job, it's what can you do? And that's been a factor. I think the fact that you're negotiating with someone the other side of the Atlantic, and even with time zones and stuff, it's just not ideal. I mean, I seen Stephen McPhail on the pitch after the game tonight, and you know, a guy who played the game, a guy who, you know, we'd like to think he's an eye for a player and all that. He's a great relationship with the manager, and presumably, as far as I can see, has the trust of his board and the owners of the club. We don't have that situation, and it's mad to be almost envious of what you see on the other setup, because that's probably the right way to do it. But again, we haven't been doing things right at all.
Yeah. And just David Lennon has asked, just your interview you had earlier in the year with Bill, how do you, I suppose the best way probably is to say, the thing, you know, back then you probably could agree with a lot of his statements, because he was coming out saying that he thinks we'll still be challenging. That was at the very start of the season. There's a lot of water under the bridge. And since then, what would be your take? I mean, you've had, I suppose, two kind of not in-depth interviews, James, but you know, they were longer than probably most people would have a chat with him. How has your views changed about Bill and I suppose you probably need to separate that, James. I'm probably being a bit unfair to you, because you've probably got, you know, Bill Hulsizer, the person, but then you also have his role within the club and what he has done or he hasn't done, I suppose.
Look, Bill Hulsizer, the person, in my view, is a nice guy, but 99% of the people in Oriel tonight were nice guys. I know plenty of nice guys, but I wouldn't hire every guy I know that's a nice guy to do a job for me. I think he's, you know, easily influenced. I think he means well. I have no doubt he means well in what he's doing, but like, not everything that's a good deed turns out that way. And, you know, even you know, there was points of this season where we maybe had half a dozen players on the books that, you know, I'm talking about your Tanner Dogans, your Herman Giamatti, your, you know, these different guys around the club. And with all due respect to them, but streets off the level of, I mean, two of them were sent back from at loan. Because they weren't good enough effectively for that level. And maybe that's been harsh, but it's reality. I mean, we'd all love to be playing League of Ireland football, but we're not good enough. But like that sort of, when you talk to Bill, he'll argue that, you know, I'm giving a guy a chance. And, you know, I think he at one point mentioned the examples of a Kante and a Vardy and stuff like this. But I mean, that's all well and good. But I mean, it just goes back to, I don't think you get a football setup at all, because, you know, anyone can see very quickly that some of these guys will never make the level. And look, that's, you know, been many a good lad that's never been good enough. But we take these over, we pay them a wage. I'm not saying they're the highest earners at the club, but we also house them. We do all this sort of nice stuff, but like, they're never going to be good enough for your team. Some of them haven't even been playing at under 19 level that were of that level, because they're not up to it. We took another few guys over here on trial that were never going to get work permits. And wastage. I mean, the money spent on that, with all due respect, and then you won't give a guy who's proven himself a longer term contract or a better deal. You won't appoint, say, a full-time secretary of your club.
Yeah.
You know, there's various areas of that club if you look at it, and you know, I don't want to take everything away from it. There has been some good stuff up there too, but I mean, you know, I go back to the fact we don't have a full-time assistant manager at the moment. You know, so we spent stupidly, for want of a better term, in some areas, and we won't spend in areas which are more needed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know he probably means well, but the overspend when it became abundantly clear what was required or what was being spent, I mean, that's probably got us to the point now where this state of flux, where it's created a lot of anger among the fans, but equally from Peak Six headquarters, they're kind of on the fence about their overall commitment to it.
Yeah.
Like stuff like trying to build your brand in Korea, just bonker stuff. Like, with all due respect to Han, it's not his fault, but you know, I go back to little things like you still, and we're nearly at the end of the season, you still can't go on to DundalkFC.com and buy a jersey with Han 77 on the back. You know, so all these little things, even his own family can't support him in that way. And I just think, you know, he's got sidetracked on many issues, petty arguments with the FAI, stuff like that, and it's been to the detriment of the club. Appointing, you even go back to Jim Magilton. You know, from the outside, I welcomed that. I didn't know Jim or anything, but I mean, the overall role I thought was something badly needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably has never let him fully do the job. You know, I think most people, if Jim, I'm not trying to defend Jim here, I think if Jim left in the morning, most people would probably welcome it and probably say, well, he was a flop or whatever. But I think a lot of it's been, he hasn't also been allowed to do it. And I'm not taking all the blame away from Jim. I want to reiterate that. But give a clear run at it, even with Vinny in both terms. He's been bundled in with players he didn't want or need. And, you know, the continual interference, you know, from someone who doesn't know the game. I mean, we're all under 50. Bill Holzhauser didn't play a game of football until he was 50. Never looked at anything of football. That doesn't mean we've the answers, but you know, he doesn't have the upbringing in it. He you know, he never played it at any sort of level. He you know, I remember one time on the phone to him, he recommended me watching This Is Football on Amazon Prime or something. You know, this is the level that he's at, and it is almost Football Manager style at times, where, you know, even I go back to Han, because I remember we were trying to sign another Han at the time that we didn't get, and I remember getting a tip off that we were after another one, and I was able to guess his name based on the free agent list of players available at that time, because it was so obvious what he was doing, and that was almost despite the FAI, because there was work permit issues around the other hand, and he didn't take kindly to it. And that's no way to run any business. It's no way to run a football club. It's certainly no way to run a League of Ireland football club, where, you know, if a Newcastle United now or something want to do something stupid, they, you know, it's ultimately not too detrimental to them. But I think it's best at this stage for everyone if he isn't there. But again, you come back to the old adage: are you going to sack your dad?
And therein lies some of the bigger problems with it. Like you said, probably with Peak Six Towers and what they're, if they're 50-50 and sitting on the fence on this one, what they actually want to do. James, I appreciate you jumping on tonight. Just before you go, for yourself, who was your man of the match tonight? You're not going to win the pizza, James, because you're on though, but I still put you in the competition.
I'm actually only back from Darren McKeely done about 3 podcasts I think last week. I was with him last week, so I definitely don't need a pizza. I need to go on I don't know, a juice diet or something. But it's a difficult one. Like, there was so many tonight for me. Sean, you know, I thought, you know, Sean Murray, Hoban. I thought Andy Boyle was brilliant. I thought, he definitely got away with a penalty.
Definitely.
But
He was the RT man of the match tonight, Andy Boyle.
Yeah, well, maybe for that reason, with the fact he did dodge the penalty as well, adds extra, kudos to it, because we to be fair, we probably owed that bit of luck, but
definitely.
I don't think we could have had too many complaints if there was a penalty and maybe even a red card. But
you're picking your man of the match and you're sending off Andy Boyle. What's going on here?
Yeah, no, but it's nice to get one over Rovers in more ways than one. So maybe for that reason, Boiler deserves. But I think, look, you could have chose that. Like, even I didn't mention Stanton there, but like his energy at times was brilliant as well. So, but maybe I'll go with Boiler.
Across a lot of it across the back line, but there is some for Boyle, Murray, Dummigan, Leahy. Everyone's getting a good shout there tonight. We always say it's a good sign when the man of the match is kind of fairly even across the pitch, that there's a number of players who kind of stepped up tonight.
I think you could throw a dart at maybe half a dozen of them. I don't think you'd be far wrong. Like it, and again, as you say, it's a good problem to have.
Exactly. James, appreciate you coming in tonight, especially after being up in Oriel Park. So go and start your juice diet. And I'm sure
Monday. I didn't say what Monday.
Exactly.
Cheers, lads.
James, appreciate that, pal. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
And then there were three gents where we'll probably start looking towards the competition ourselves. Donal, I'll come to you first. For yourself, who was your man of the match tonight? And I'll start looking through this and I'll start adding these up.
Obviously, there's lots of contenders. I'm going to go with Dummigan. I think James mentioned it there, that he went on a run after about 2 or 3 minutes and almost put Hoban in behind the Rovers defence. And I think that was like a tone setter for the whole night. I'm going to go with Dummigan.
Steph, I see your phrase was being copied around tonight, by the way. I see Richie O'Connor had no pat, no party tonight.
No pat, no party, yeah. Good man, Rich. The man of the match, I've narrowed it down to 11. So it's going to be short and sweet this one. No, I thought
none of the substitutes are on it, no?
You could, look, Mayo come on and fucking close down everyone, including Bradley at one stage, I think, when the ball went over the sideline. No, look, there's 5 or 6 you could mention that you could have a strong argument for them being man of the match. I don't know, like sometimes you're watching a game and someone does something really good and you sort of, I don't know whether you're watching particularly more, maybe it's just me, but when Leahy played that ball to Duffy that started the whole move off for the goal, I thought Leahy was excellent. Like, I know Ronan, I thought he played Ronan Finn off the park and he couldn't get by him once. Even when he was getting doubled up on that side, I don't think he was dealing with everything. He was playing balls out from the back. I thought he was excellent. I thought Lee was my man of the match anyway, especially after the stick he sort of came in for. He'd injury troubles and he wasn't getting a run in the team like we were talking a couple of months ago. He wasn't even getting on the bench.
Yeah,
we were sort of saying, what's going on? There's something not right. He's an ex-Irish under-21 international. Like, he wasn't like just involved in squads. He was starting games and playing, and he went away to the UK and came back. But he's come in for a bit of stick, undeservedly so. I think, like, But to put that all behind him and put a performance like that, I thought he was very, very good. So
again, and to be fair, he was in the squad initially when Vinny was there, and then when Vinny left, he's all of a sudden he couldn't kick a ball in the team.
Yeah,
kind of played out of position a few times, came back in, and I think when you look at Dummigan and Leahy this year, they've been playing more consistent. Their football's getting better, and then when they were asked to play out of position, they still accommodated and really acquitted themselves really well too. So it shows a level of maturity in the two guys too. Like,
Yeah, sometimes even if you're asked to do a job for the team in a different position, it sort of gives you a little bit of a lift within itself, saying, "Look, I'm doing this for the team. It's not for yourself. You're doing it for the team," and sort of your confidence can grow from that as well. And when he's been in left full, he's been very good. It just showed tonight against supposedly the best team in the country.
Right. So
So
we're going to have one of these situations, lads.
Were you
So
going to
we've
pick
got
whoever you want?
Dummigan, Leahy, and I'm going with Murray. Just not only for his goal tonight, but just his performance of late.
goal line clearance as well.
Exactly. So I think, especially, he's the only one also talking about perhaps staying, and giving Andy Boyle some company next year. So he's mine, which gives us an even dead heat across us all, which kind of puts us in a predicament then. So do I just pick one at random?
We're
How
not
does this
going to
work?
do
Whoever picked the league, he wins it, obviously.
we can't do it a Gary Neville and give a joint man of the match here either, because
Right.
we can't be giving away 4 pizzas or whatever it would be.
Unless there's a couple out there willing to split it. The 10 couples.
Right, we're pretty even at the moment between Murray and Dummigan on the comments.
Nobody has a clue in this podcast.
Right, Flano's trying in there with a late one now for Murray.
I think Flano also
Flano.
picked Dummigan earlier, so he's just an agent of chaos tonight. Flano's just dropping bombs into this.
I was going to pick Dummigan until Flano said the right back club. He kept me out of right back, for fuck's sake.
Steph, pick one or two. Two. Okay, so our winner is a Dummigan winner tonight. It's Barry McKeever. Congratulations, Barry. You are a winner of our Tony's Pizzeria Man of the Match competition. So congratulations. Just contact Tony's Pizzeria there and order up your pizza. Compliments of ourselves. Lads,
He'd
before
be
we
up there.
What's that?
He'd be cleaning up, ever clean.
Fair play. I see what you did there, pal. Before we finish up, because we actually don't mind looking at the table for a change tonight, we can see that we're now up to 6th place. We're 5 points clear of Waterford, even though we played a game in hand. So psychologically, I think we're starting to really turn a corner. When you start to look at that 4th spot, you're 4 points off it. It's too far to dare to dream anything there, isn't it?
I still think it's absolutely
like,
crazy.
In saying that, then you're looking for what, Pats to win the cup if we were knocked out of
it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still not looking up. I'm still looking at, like, we've won 3 out of 4 games and drawn the other one, and we're only 5 points clear of Waterford with a game in hand. Like, it's absolutely mental the amount of points we've gained, and still to be like, Jesus, if we lose.
But when you think of the form of Waterford and Dundalk at the moment, which is probably some of the more informed teams down there, like, all of a sudden, if you're Drogheda and Finn Harps, you're probably a little bit worried, because halfway through the season you were thinking we're not going to have to worry about relegation. All of a sudden you're like, oh God, you need someone to be in free fall to take away that last playoff position. But look, it's anyone's now, isn't it?
Yeah, and you would worry about someone like, well, you wouldn't really worry too much about Drogheda, but from their point of view, they'd probably be a little bit worried that, like, if they don't pick up a few points in the next few games and Dundalk and Waterford's form continues the way it is, you just keep getting sucked further down into it.
And
like,
comment there, just Collins just saying, if you look at the goal difference as well there, because of Waterford at the start of the year, were taking more hits than Baghdad. I think that. Sorry. I think that's probably, if anyone comes level on points with them, that goal difference is going to really come back to haunt them, isn't it?
Yeah, and nobody's going to, unless they go on a mad goal scoring spree, they're not going to make that up enough. Like Finn Harps would be the closest ones, but it's still a massive swing.
It's amazing with the poor form, Steph, of Sligo, that they're actually still there when you think about how bad they have been of late.
Yeah, like they were clear and second, weren't they, at one stage, and the form was just like the bottom half of the table. I'd say if you put up the last 5 games or so, just the form table, it'd read nearly upside down. Obviously, Rovers would still be up there, but like some of the teams down the bottom, bar Longford, have been getting the most points in the league. Like it's been a bit of a mad season, but I don't know. Maybe with the crowds coming back, it's sort of balancing it up now a wee bit, especially with Dundalk anyway.
Yeah. So just for the purpose of everything here, so Rovers still remain top on 62 points, followed by Pats 53 points, then Sligo on 46 points, then Derry 42. In 5th place is Bows on 41, then Dundalk up to 6th on 38 points, a point ahead of Drogheda and Finn Harps, and 5 then ahead of Waterford, who are in 9th, and then Cuttadrift and Longford below that on 14. Look, it sets up, I suppose, the Bulls match nicely next week, lads. You got to start wondering if this team can turn up, they can turn off with anyone in the league.
Yeah.
Can we see some consistency?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Like if they could be consistent, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But again, if you're looking at that last 5 games there, like the consistency is starting to come. Like that's, I don't know, what was it? When was the last time we lost? Can't remember who we lost. Oh, Longford. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the results have been good the last couple of weeks. And performances have been good the last couple of weeks. So they're definitely capable of going and beating everybody. Sure, beat Bows a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Frank Carlin 3-1. There you go. That's the confidence I like.
Straight in there. Yeah.
Straight in. Steph, what are we thinking just next week?
Yeah, look, we need to just keep going with this now. The momentum is just, we can't afford any more injuries, but there's some more players coming back apparently. So so it'll just strengthen up. At least with some options. Like we couldn't make a sub until the 90th minute tonight, and Patchen was apparently carrying an injury as well coming into the game. So the work he got through, you wouldn't think it, but you just wouldn't like to see any of the form players just picking up any knocks, because we don't have anything from the bench to like you've 1 or 2 players there, but they're all inexperienced. If you're in a fight still to keep building on what we have, we can definitely beat Bows. Like if we can beat Rovers, we can beat anybody in the league.
That's the optimism that I think we should be ending on. Steph is being positive tonight. Let's bow out of this as quick as we can before he finds a negative in it. I want to thank James Rogers for popping on, Donald, Steph, you 2 lads, for being here tonight as well, considering Gally's away gallivanting, and Pingu is doing, he's probably warming up for his marathon the weekend, just doing shuttle runs in his sitting room. I don't know. I don't know what joggers do.
And I wore my wee collar for flannel.
Yeah, exactly. So on a night where we beat Rovers, has anyone got a final word we'd like to say?
Donald has to have the last word.
No, I mean, I did think the highlight of the whole season was going to be when we nicked the ball off Richie Towell in Tala and scored from that mistake. But I think, I think him getting abuse going down the tunnel tonight was probably going to be the highlight of the whole season. So that's all I could say.
What'd you say to him, Don?
Don't worry, we got Sean Murray.
Fuck off.
Right. We're out. James, thanks for that. And we'll see everybody again after the Bulls match next week. Cheers, guys.
No Pat, no party.